Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering the Afterparty, Season 1, Episode 2, Brett. In this episode, we get an inside look at Brett, who is not as much of a complete monster as he seemed to be, which I do really enjoy. And yet, so many of his actions, taken on surface level, I mean, you can kind of understand why Anik drew the conclusions he drew. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Max for commissioning this episode. Max is not here this evening, but Max, thinking of you and appreciate you a lot. This show is turning out to be so much fun. I'm really excited about it. And I'm also extremely excited because y'all know that I was sort of like thinking that maybe Jasper was the killer, and his POV episode is the next one. So I'm like psyched to watch episode 3 because I don't know. I just have my suspicions. And I think maybe he's a red herring. You know, I'm thinking I might be being played. But if I am, they're doing a good job. I like being played well. I'll just say that. Max is here. Hi, Max. Max is saying glad you like it. Oh, delighted to have you here, bud. So, all right, let's start at the beginning of this episode because it starts off right where the last one ended, which is to say Brett was being stopped from leaving the premises after they caught him heading to his car. And it's extremely suspicious seeming, but when we get right down to it, it turns out his daughter is asleep in the car and he has just been trying to check on her while also not leaving. And I love the fact that he says, I can tell you what's going on, but I can't say it in front of her. And gestures to his wife so that there's ex-wife, so that there is a sort of vibe like he is cheating on her or something like that. It makes you feel like a lot more suspicious, but it turns out that it's just he has his daughter with her and he should not. So it's that simple. He doesn't want her to find out that he brought his daughter with him. And honestly, I can't even be that mad about that because this is the sort of thing that I kind of imagine if you're a parent, you run into a lot. That is, you have people who you're parenting with somebody who thinks different things are appropriate or are trying to, I want to use the words get away with something, but that makes it sound like a lot more sinister than I mean it. I just mean like things don't go quite according to plan and they know it's going to look bad. So they try and fudge a situation. And I have to assume that my parents also dealt with this, but I do not remember it. So I just really like seeing how this shakes out for him because on the surface, from everybody else's perspective, due to the fact that he's trying to keep it on the DL, she's even here, his actions seem completely nuts. And it just continues on throughout the episode, all of these like weird moments. So he at this point is getting asked to like go somewhere and share what's happening privately. And as this is happening with him, Anik is going to the bathroom again to try and like find more of the pieces of this torn up letter. So I don't even know what to call it. Note, I guess. It's like, I keep thinking that it's song lyrics. And once it's put together, I'm going to read the whole thing through. But I also started to wonder if this wasn't a red herring as well. Because it's left in such a way. It's not hard to put together. You know, like Anik, it's almost too easy that he has stumbled across this. So anyway, he goes into the bathroom to find Jasper, and Jasper is taking a selfie in the bathroom. And he says that he's been writing a tribute song because the acoustics are incredible, which comes up again later, the acoustics in bathrooms. And Anik says to him, I really want to find a way to listen in on the conversation with Brett. And he's like, oh, I got you. He shows him this little sound system thing that he built and says, press home, intercom, enter, main floor, bathroom 3, enter, enter, home. Which I really enjoy these little, like, here's the thing. Because I am suspicious of Jasper, every time there comes an instance where we have to take his word for something, my eyebrows go up. And I'm not sure whether I should. And this, when he's giving him the instructions on how to do it, home, intercom, enter, main floor, bathroom 3, enter, enter, home, sounds wrong. It sounds wrong to me. And when Anik does input that, it doesn't do what he wanted it to do, which makes me think not that Anik got it wrong, but that Jasper gave him the wrong information on purpose. And I don't know why he would do that. I have to assume it's because he wanted to be able to access the panel inside that room himself and put like Anik in a scenario where he had to come to the rescue. But there is something about the fact that Anik got that wrong. You could easily put it down to him under the heat of the moment and being stressed, just misremembering. But I am going to put it on the line here and say, Anik does not strike me as somebody who would get this wrong. How quickly he comes up with that mnemonic device to remember feels to me like somebody who's got the exact type of memory that would always get shit like this correct. So I'm just saying that whole way he says, then me on this side, I'll press accept, then mute. We can hear everything they say. They can't hear us. And it sounds great, but I am just feeling a little bit iffy about how Jasper has been in charge of installing all of this stuff in here. And that could easily be turned to his advantage if he's the only one who seems to really know how to work any of it. Especially considering the fact that we were told at the beginning that his remote doesn't quite work right, which this all may have been somehow set up to do. I don't know. I don't even know how you would use this sort of setup to kill somebody. I don't know that you could. There's all kinds of things that are moving around in that room. So it's possible you could make something move so that he falls, or he's leaning on the railing and you make the railing suddenly like retract and go away and he falls. I don't know. But I feel like that's a little bit more convoluted than the kind of mystery we're looking at here. Not to say that going through all these different characters and what happened that night isn't convoluted, because it's definitely, that's the point. But I feel like something that's that elaborate is more of an Agatha Christie, like Poirot unravels things at the end in a way that you could never ever have figured out without him telling you. And I like to think that this is a mystery that not necessarily you could figure out yourself, but that once you hear what it is, you're like, oh, the clues were definitely there. I just missed them. Whereas with Poirot, for those who have watched that show, a lot of the time, the clues may have technically been there, but they weren't really. You know, he's operating under all this like sort of information that he is taking for granted, but doesn't really occur to a modern reader because circumstances and context has changed so much with history that it's like, doesn't quite count anymore. Anyway, so this is, we have Brett going into this, this is so good. he's about to start telling his story. And the way that he is talking to the detective is, I guess you could say I was a little late to the party. And I want to give this actor props. I don't know his name. I'm not going to look him up because I'm afraid I'll get spoiled somehow. But I immediately, when he said, guess you could say I was a little late to the party, got the vibe they were going for, which is what they continue on with in his POV, is a Fast and Furious kind of energy, action movie energy. And right here, just the delivery of that line, it's pitch perfect. Considering that they get interrupted almost immediately by Anik, the fact that I grasped what they were doing so quick is a real testament to how the camera is positioned in that moment and the way he delivers the line and the music that's sort of like very low underlying the scene. It's just really, really well done. So then this is when Anik comes in and he tries to pretend that he lost his phone, makes each of them sort of get up to see if it's in the chair. Eventually he gets the detective to like look under the table so that she's distracted because he's thinking maybe it fell. And as she is distracted, he tries to punch in the thing, but Brett sees him doing that. And this kind of raised some questions for me. So he sees him typing the thing in, and immediately X marks the G spot starts playing. Lights begin flashing. Eventually we have in the background the bar comes up out of this like console that it was hidden in, and because he keeps continuing to press buttons trying to stop it. I love that the Hungry Hippos, like there's clips of all of his stuff playing in the background on this television, and they have been playing this whole time, but it seems like maybe the sound just came on or it was frozen the whole time and it actually started playing. Anyway, this is when Jasper comes in and tries to sell them on a similar system. And Anik has to admit that his phone was in his pocket the whole time. They take over the bathroom again. And the other detective, I'm forgetting names. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to try and like pay attention to when they're mentioned. But the other detective is out in the hall noticing them rushing into the bathroom. And later on, he winds up telling her, is her name Danner? I feel like it's something like that. But he winds up giving her a heads up that they've been in there for like 20 minutes. So let's see. Oh, right. This is when Jasper turns on the thing and they're hearing the opening again of the Brett POV. And the detective saying, so you say you were late to the party? And he says, no, I left home late. Got to the party right on time. I found this a little bit interesting, and I don't know if it's meaning anything. There's two ways that this could be. Well, technically there's three ways. Okay. First way. He was going to say, I was late to the party because it was a bad boy sort of line. And then once he was like interrupted and they got serious again, he decided to just be more real with her and tell her the truth. No, I wasn't late to the party. I was right on time. But it's also possible that he saw that Anik was fucking with the little panel there, suspected that maybe somebody else was listening or somehow this was going to, and changed his story for whatever reason. And then there's also the possibility that he was about to say, I was late to the party. They got interrupted. He realized that maybe he shouldn't tell that version of events. I'm sorry if you can hear Sam gobbling up water over here. He's very thirsty. And he decided, you know what? Let me change it. I have the chance now that she has like opened the conversation again. I'm going to retract that. And because the timing would be like suspect otherwise. And also I just want to remind everybody that in the first episode, Chelsea, I think, is the one who said that she saw what he has in the car. and it's his daughter. So I enjoy that a lot because it sounds like it's something illicit, and it's just his child's. And we get the opening that's very much a Fast and Furious style. He comes like pulling into this fucking parking lot in, I don't know what type of car this is, but it is, you guys, this whole thing is so good. There's all kinds of unnecessary drifting as he comes into the parking lot. He slides sideways across 2 parking spots and says like a glove, even though he's taking up so much space. And then when his name comes up as Brett, it's in the like slanted chrome letters that are like moving quickly across the screen with that like effect. And he has the exact kind of leather jacket. I saw the leather jacket, and I will be perfectly honest, as much as I got with the delivery of his line before that this was going to be like, oh, we're a tough guy action thing. And this clearly was a nod to Fast and the Furious. When he began speaking, I didn't get what he was doing, and I was like, it's almost like he's doing a Vin Diesel, and I suddenly was like ready to slap myself in the face, because of course that's what he's doing. And he even says nothing's more important than family line, which gets said a couple times, which is just chef's kiss, so perfect. And the way that he introduces himself, because he like comes up behind his friend, and this is the Asian guy who's married to one of the pregnant Jennifers. If I ever take a shot to the head, if I quiver and quake and fall down dead, screw it, let's just drink instead. And they like have one of those bro hug moments. Again, if you've seen any Fast and the Furious movies, they always do this sort of thing where one of them signals the other when they're not paying attention. They immediately recognize who it is. There's a long dramatic turnaround. Oh my God, it's you. And they greet each other like they're best friends that have not seen each other for literally years. Brett the Vet, Ned the Sled. I do not know why he's called Ned the Sled, and I am curious. I'm just going to put that out there. And he calls him brother. Word was you weren't coming tonight. Sorry to hear about the divorce. It's a separation. I haven't signed the papers yet. Still hoping I can make it work. And this is when he does. It's tough. I still love her a lot. Zoe and Maggie are the best things that ever happened to me. The most important thing in this world is family. And he takes the sunglasses to say that, puts them back on at the end of the sentence. But then when Zoe hails him, immediately kind of panics, smells his own breath, and explains that he hired Veronica to babysit, my bad. And what we're finding out in this section is he had agreed not to come at all tonight. So the fact that like the babysitter decided that she was going to bail, I thought this was, a sitter that Zoe had arranged, and that they were in a living situation where she was alone with the kid for right now, and that Brett wasn't living with them. So that she would be responsible for having a sitter, and that Brett was free to move about as he pleased. And if he decided to come, that was kind of a dick move, but it wasn't exactly like he was shirking responsibilities to be here, if that makes sense. And it turns out he is supposed to be watching his daughter, but he got a sitter so that despite the fact that he and Zoe have agreed that she is supposed to have this evening to herself, he crashes and just keeps on completely ruining the situation for her in a variety of senses, both with Anik and the two of them like getting close, but also he's wanting to get her back, and everything he is doing is making it more and more clear why they are split up and why she should not give him another chance. And this is the sort of thing that, like, leaving aside actually abusive relationships, which this could be seen as sort of teetering on the edge of if it weren't for the way it works out in the end. Leaving that aside, so many people, I think, make this mistake where they are trying to get a person back, and in doing that, they are showing all of the behaviors that are what led to the split to begin with. And it's a really interesting, like, confirmation. It's sort of like when you meet a guy on a dating app and you kind of feel like there are a couple of red flags about the way he behaves. And then you tell him, like, sorry, not interested. Good luck to you, but I just don't think we have a vibe. And he completely loses his mind and just starts to tell you that you are a fat, ugly cunt who nobody would want anyway. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I really dodged a bullet. And he's like trying to make you feel bad, but all he has made you do is feel very proud of the fact that you saw those red flags for exactly what they were and dodged a bullet. And that's what he's doing here. He's trying to make her like, he's trying to get her to remember their relationship and the good times, especially later with the slideshow thing. And all he is doing is underlining clearly what she had a problem with in the first place. So yeah, this, he says that he became a volunteer part-time firefighter. And he says, I don't know if you knew. And she says, you've texted me many times about that. And that's really brave. But I thought you weren't interested in coming to this. So he finally is just playing the, this is also my reunion. I'd like to come tonight. And she says, as long as you don't fuck up my good time. To which he tries to press her about what does that mean exactly? A good time like getting some wine with the girls or, you know, making some mistakes that we'll regret for the rest of our lives. And she's like, well, we'll see. Who's we? And she walks away. So then we get the voiceover of him talking to the detective. I had to make sure Zoe didn't do something she couldn't take back. And the detective says the cock block and then amends it to the clam jam. I'll tell you what, kids, I do not care for this one bit. No, thank you. I opt out. Clam jam, canceled. I do not like it. You were keeping her from getting that D. I was preserving my family. Operation Silent Savior was a go. Oh, you guys. And again, just wanting to like, I'm going to keep pointing out the little nods to Fast and Furious, but one of the big ones here is the color scheme. Everything is done in these like really bluish sort of late night club colors. And it's just a very distinctly different atmosphere than the one when we were in Anik's head for a rom-com. All the colors in his are warmer and brighter and richer. And for Brett's, it's all really washed out. And there's almost like a lot of the extras are wearing colors that feel like they blend in more. And I can't tell if they're actually literally wearing different outfits or if it's just that the filter put over this scene dulls everything out to sort of the same like blue-gray. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually had everybody wearing slightly different colors or even different outfits depending on the POV, because that wouldn't be completely out of the question in terms of like the way people remember things being really, really different. Oh my God, Max says, Brett, if Red Flags was a person. Indeed. So this is when he is watching her talking to Anik and he gets interrupted by Indigo, who tells him humans are the only animals that drink another animal's milk. It's barbaric. I have created an online group devoted to promoting homemade human breast milk cheese. Not the cheese that you're eating. That's torture. What you're eating is agony. You guys, look. I know if you look at it objectively, what she's saying technically makes some sense. But absolutely fucking not, okay? No. No. No, no, no. No. Okay, moving on. So then he says, luckily she was talking to that guy, Anik, which is like threat level 0. And what's so funny about this is Anik is listening in the bathroom, and he says he's at least threat level 7, to which Jasper says, I'll give you like a 3. But what I think is really surprising is that Jasper would give him a 3 when he saw how well Anik was doing with Zoe. I feel like he was cheering him on and telling him, now I don't know, maybe he's talking about like a threat just in pure, how well could he fight me? But it feels like what Brett is saying is a threat to me and my relationship. And Anik very nearly made out with Zoe tonight. So Jasper, I know, isn't aware of that. I don't think Anik has told him. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass. But Brett is full on thinking Anik isn't the guy that he needs to be worried about. He thinks that it's Xavier. And it turns out his wife thinks Xavier is like a fucking loser. So he is so sure he knows what her taste is and who she's going to go for. And he's completely wrong. And that is the thing that I think is kind of like, I know that it's sort of obvious anyway that their relationship is donezo. But the fact that he really misjudges what it is that she would be interested in another partner, I think is very telling. You know, I'm not saying that she couldn't have just been like, maybe I'll fuck this movie star because it's the one time that I'll ever get to do this, and why not? Because you may not be into somebody, but you're presented with an interesting opportunity and you just think, what the hell? And I wouldn't be mad at that. But it's just, to me, really funny that he is so sure Anik is no threat. And if anything, it seems like she came here specifically to see him, you know? So anyway, this is when he says something like how Anik is smooth down there. He's almost like Urkel. And the detective gets really protective of Urkel. He was the first black man that I ever heard of that had his own cereal. Plus, he was a genius. Have you ever worn suspenders? And I love that he basically like mocks him again, and she gives him a warning. If you mock Urkel one more time. And finally, he gets back to the conversation. But I do like her being super defensive of Urkel. So this scene, you guys, this is the one moment wrong. There were 2 moments where this actor, to me, barely held it together. I don't know if I'm right about this, but I got the impression, both in this scene and the one on the balcony, that he was just barely able to not laugh. It is giving suppressed hysteria to me. And I get it, but I also feel like they maybe should have done another take for both of them, because it doesn't feel to me like somebody who's just suppressed hysteria because he's so angry. He really seems like he is about to lose his shit laughing. So he's in the bathroom and he's peeing, and Xavier's there. And instead of doing a car chase, although they do that later, instead of doing like a race in cars, they do a pee race. Weirdest scene I think I've ever watched. I mean, the 2 of them pee for a solid 5 minutes. And I just want to know, is there any truth to the idea that men compare their urine streams when they're pissing to determine their masculinity? Is this anything? Because I would buy it as just the bit for this episode, but masculinity is really fucking weird and unpredictable. I remember finding out that like supposedly men going down on women was considered like submissive and not macho, which just the idea of like, I'm doing a sex act with a woman and that is somehow less masculine. It makes no sense to me. But is this something that is on anybody's mind? Xavier compliments him on his flow, which feels like an extremely strange thing to give someone props about. And this is when he says, I'm just getting started. This is first gear. And they look at each other and it's on for this weird piss race. And I love the face that he makes. He does that sort of like nose sneer, nostril flare thing that Vin Diesel does. And the way that they talk, the whole way that they do this is so completely on point. It's so weird, y'all. I really have to give him a pass on the fact that he is, in my opinion, really starting to laugh. I can't with the fact that he makes it loud enough that it starts to hurt Xavier. Like, what even is that? What are you talking about? I can't. Max is in the chat saying, I haven't, but wouldn't be surprised. If anything, I felt awkward on going on for way longer than the people next to me a couple times. That's funny. Yeah, that's the sort of thing like with women just being in a regular stall, I would never notice, you know. The only time that you notice that is if you went to the bathroom with your friend and you leave and wash your hands and leave the bathroom and they are still in there for a while. But even then, it's not like you're just going, oh, okay, they have some other business to attend to. Either they got to also take a shit, they are on their periods, something else. It's never like a judgment call about them as women, you know? Anyway, this is when Eugene, as his real name apparently was, he says Zoe's looking real good tonight. And Brett says, what are you up to? And Eugene says, you know what? I thought I would convince Jennifers to cheat on their husbands because I've never had sex with two pregnant women at the same time. But now I'm going to set my sights on your ex-wife instead. And apparently Brett used to bully him all the time. And this is payback. And I really appreciate at the end when Anik says, I thought the rivalry was between me and Xavier, and it turns out I had nothing to do with it. It was him and Brett the whole time. And I thought it was about me, and I completely missed the point. I really liked that he has the self-awareness to realize how little a factor he even was. Xavier, it seemed like, was cock-blocking Anik in particular. And looking at it now, it seems as if Xavier didn't see Anik at all. In a similar way, honestly, to Brett. So this is when he starts singing about sex with your ex, sings Zoe's name. And unfortunately, because Brett still has to pee, he cannot chase him out. And then comes, I think, my favorite joke of the entire episode, which is after he finishes peeing, he stops to wash his hands and starts singing the happy birthday song, because that's how long you're supposed to wash your hands for like proper hygiene. You guys, that got to me so bad. I fell out laughing on that. That was a really good joke. This is what's so fun about Brett's character, is that he's like a controlling, pompous asshole in one moment, and then the next moment he's being weirdly responsible about like safety stuff. And I just really like that, the contrasts here. So anyway, he tries to chase him out there, but Xavier has already gone and sat with Zoe. So he joins Anik and Jasper at the other table, does that whole glowering thing. I love Jasper is like whispering in her ear, but looking at Brett over her shoulder and just kind of, you know. And his dialogue here, when Anik was quoting him, he was saying something about how he fucking just hates Xavier. He hates his stupid face. something very basic and childish. But here he says something like, I'm not going to let him ruin my family. Family. That's it. And he gets up and walks away. And so it's a much more like cogent thought with a like motivation behind it than what Anik had us believe. This is when he bumps into Walt. And that will come back up later. But I'm just going to do it now. Walt tells him what his name is a little bit later again. And then says, what's my name? And he's like, why are you asking me that right now? And Walt tries to like put him on the spot. And he just basically is like, get the fuck out of my way, and shoves right past him. And the fact that Walt is doing this to literally everybody, you know, part of me had been very suspicious of him initially. And the fact that it seemed as if he maybe didn't belong at this party. But how insistent he's being with everybody, like whether they know his name or not, I am starting to think he did go to this school. It's feeling like a genuine sort of neurosis to me, feeling like nobody remembers him or knows who he is. So, you know, I don't know. I'm feeling like really mixed, but I'm leaning toward he really is who he's pretending to be. So this is when, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing here, but he tricks the like person who's in charge of the AV from walking away from his station for a little bit so that he can get all of these like family photos from Facebook uploaded into the slideshow that's going to be coming up, and then convinces the guy to start the slideshow right away. And when it begins, he gets completely wrapped up in it and starts crying, despite saying that this is going to be affecting Zoe. He obviously cannot handle seeing these pictures. He's really like losing it. And then he looks over and Zoe has gotten up from her table and is walking out, and it completely backfired on him. Oh, right. This is when Walt walks in front of him and stops him. And I forgot, he grabs him by the arm and like twists it to get him to drop to the ground. Oh, Walt, what are you doing, bro? And then I forgot, he walks away and says, Peter, do you remember me? Man, he is really on a fucking warpath tonight. So he's running down the hallway trying to find Zoe, and he runs into Chelsea, spills a drink all over her. She wants to know what the fuck is up, but almost instantly is like, oh, I see, you're looking for Zoe. And I really enjoy this. She kind of strings him along a little bit, acts like she got a phone call, and she then admits to him that there's nobody there. And then, you know what? I'm just... No, I can't tell you. I'm sorry. It's girl code. I can't tell you. Women's code, sorry. Was she with Xavier? What about Xavier? You hate him? That doesn't matter. What matters is I find her. What matters is that I have some plans for Xavier tonight. Remember St. Patrick's Day at your uncle's house? And when she says that, he says my uncle lives in Tucson. And implies that her mentioning his uncle is part of her mental breakdown that she had, and that she's like misremembering because she's sort of lost her marbles. This is really interesting because either he doesn't recall that his uncle was up here at one point, or it was somebody else's uncle's house and she's misremembering, or he said it was his uncle's house when it wasn't. There's a lot of potential here. I do not believe for an instant, though, that it's just her getting mixed up because she's addled. I don't think that's what's happening. So, anyway, she does the whole like, oh, you'll all see. And I have to assume it's something that's like a lot less intense than it sounds. Of course, now the guy's been murdered. It's sounding very sinister. But to me, what it sounds like is sort of that she's going to get him to like embarrass himself somehow. It doesn't feel to me like revenge of the type where, because if you're planning to kill somebody, I don't think you say this to someone else. However, she has been drinking. Yet, what has she been drinking? Like, is she as drunk as she seems like she is? Is she putting on a show? Because that's certainly a thing, especially in mysteries. Okay. Oh, right. There's the letter is coming together in the bathroom, by the way, the note that Anik has found. And I cannot decide what the deal is with Jasper, because he's watching him put this together. And I'm like, did he want Anik to find this? Did he expect him to? Did he expect the cops to? Like, what is his plan here? So this is when Brett comes out of the hallway and he runs into Zoe and tells her that they have to get out of here right now. And he says, or she responds with, I just saw Maggie. What the fuck? Veronica was here. He says, well, I'm taking her home. Don't worry about that. Eugene is taking advantage of you. And she replies, I'm not doing this. When he explains he's just trying to get back at me, she says, you think everything is all about you. And he starts screaming about this horny grease bag just as his daughter runs up. And, of course, Anik right behind her. I adore this little girl. This actress they got for her is very good. She is excellent at towing that line between being really mischievous and really innocent, which is a difficult thing to pull off. Like, sometimes kids that come across mischievous also come across as malevolent, you know? And she's managing to be like, I'm going to cause some trouble, but I'm going to be adorable about it. So this is when Zoe tells him, I'm going to be at the after party at Xavier's. And he tells his daughter that he is going to take her home. He gives his wife his word that she's not going to see him again tonight. I give you my word, and my word is my bond. It's the only thing I've got that's worth a damn. I really enjoy how the camera angle changes when he does this. The music changes slightly. His intonation changes, but nobody else's does. Everybody reacts to him like it was a normal conversation and he just was being dramatic, and it's very funny. So he watches as Xavier is crossing the floor, and he's going to just let this guy go, it seems like. Not really sure what else to do. But his daughter stops Xavier because she recognizes him from Hungry Hungry Hippos. And he does an imitation of the character that he played. I'm going to tell you right now, that was so scary. I know it's supposed to be cute. It's supposed to be an over-the-top portrayal of like a cartoonish character from a kid, the family comedy. He literally scared me. It was horrible. I hated this so much. But the little girl really, really enjoys it. I'll watch After Your Mom for you tonight. Okay. Make sure she's happy. Yeah? Don't worry. You won't miss anything at the after party because you weren't invited. And gives Brett double middle fingers. When Brett gets offended on Maggie's behalf, she just says, Daddy, I love him. This is when she says that man has my koala. Of course, he thinks she's talking about Xavier. She is not. And thus begins the chase. Wonderful, wonderful recontextualization. You think that he is running after Anik because he sees Anik as a threat and wants to beat the shit out of him for getting with his ex-wife. Current wife, I guess, if he hasn't signed the papers. But all he wants is to get that koala back, and he does not see Anik as any sort of threat at all. We get a beautiful slide across the hood of the car, and then he decides to give chase for this koala, and it is So funny, you guys. We have him at the intersection where he rolls down his window and he's trying to tell them he wants the koala back and they don't understand him. And honestly, yelling for a koala is a really weird thing to say. So it makes sense they didn't get what it was, but he should have said something about how he wants the stuffed animal, it's in your pocket. He doesn't say any of that. And it seems like later on, when he catches up with Anik and tries to talk to him, Anik doesn't seem aware he even has it. So I'm not sure how it got in there. If it was just sort of an absent-minded, I tucked it into my pocket without thinking. I don't know. But the thing that I really enjoyed about this is as he's telling this story to the detective, he apparently is being honest with her about like the wildness of his driving. And she's like, don't you think that's dangerous? And he says her car seat has a 7-point restraint system, latch anchors, and side airbags. She was totally safe and having the time of her life. I believe him. This is not a man that would put his daughter in danger. Not really. I just don't believe it. One could argue that by him leaving her in the car asleep that he was putting her in danger. I don't think he was. I really think this is like, it's fine. And she is having such a good time. It is so fun to like watch her hanging on in the back and just totally thrilled. He pulls out a bag of fruit snacks and tosses them back there for her. You guys, this is so... She calls him the best dad ever. And he gets extremely like verklempt. So anyway, he eventually pulls up at the party and the whole thing, he gets like penned in by a truck at one point. I don't feel like that's necessarily that important, but eventually he arrives at Xavier's house and I think security have been alerted to watch out for him. So he gets sort of intercepted pretty quickly by this dude, bald, in a beard. You have to leave the premises immediately. And we get a really, really silly fight scene. It's so great because he is trying to like assure his daughter throughout this fight that the fight is not actually happening. Because obviously she's a child without eyes who doesn't know when a fight is happening in front of her face. So he keeps trying to be like, oh, we know each other from high school. It's part of the reunion. It's very silly. And this security guard, the way the fight goes, it's like they purposely overblow all the movements so that whenever somebody like dodges a punch, it feels like that punch was telegraphed way ahead. Everything is just too big. The motions are too exaggerated. And it's really fun with the light behind them that's sort of doing that lens flare thing. Like there's always one bright light coming from whatever camera angle they happen to be in. It's coming like from the center of the screen. It's really fun and extremely accurate to this movie type. And the fight carries on into like the catering kitchen, and this dude starts at one point chucking all these like random objects at him. And that was like a moment that I particularly liked because it's not the thing that I think a security guard would be doing, just like throwing random items from the kitchen at this person. But eventually, he grabs a hold of what looks to be a cast iron pan. And he says, enough of this shit. You got skills, but you ain't got a skillet. And he beats this guy in such a way that the dude is like standing for a moment before he completely collapses. And as the guy falls, he says, order up. It's pretty good. I kind of like that. I am a real sucker for like cheesy action. Everybody's got their sort of trash genre, you know, and for a lot of people it's rom-coms. I think rom-coms there's just so much room for things to go wrong because the chemistry isn't there that they tend to miss for me a lot of the time. action movies, it's the sort of thing that even if it's like not done well, it's still entertaining enough that you can at least mock it. And I can't enjoy mocking something that's supposed to be about like people liking each other and having feelings. It's not as easy to do. I can mock guys who are punching each other on an open, like, aircraft, you know, with the door hanging open before one of them's going to fall off. That's fine. So anyway, this is when he enters the party. He pretends to be a caterer, or one of the waiters, and a Jennifer stops him and grabs a bunch of hors d'oeuvres as he is heading inside, which he winds up handing that tray off to Walt. And Walt says, and I love this, "I had a stew before I came out. Thank you." I don't know what it is about the fact that Walt had stew, because stew is delicious, but it is just the sort of like bland nothing meal. Like a stew could mean almost anything. It's just a really perfect thing for him to have said he had. It's even better than oatmeal, because oatmeal, at least there's like a certain sweetness, specificity to it. A stew, it just doesn't sound good, you know? Like stew is also a verb for just letting things sit in water. Ew. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyway, he leaves the tray with Walt, and this is when he goes up to Anik to get the koala, and he says, "Where's the koala?" And Anik, who's clearly very drunk, says, "I don't have the koalifications." He goes through Anik's pockets and he finds it, holds it up. Anik tries to say that he's never seen it before in his life. Brett tells him he's a bad person because he steals from children. I want to point something out here. As this confrontation is happening, Jasper is in the background watching the whole thing. I don't know if that's significant at all, but he's there. So this is when Brett shoves Anik into the shrimp display, just as Zoe looks down from the balcony where she's hanging out with Xavier. And when she looks down and sees that Brett has started a fight, he immediately tries to walk it back, which I kind of appreciated. I sort of thought Brett was going to try and make excuses for himself and be like, "You don't get it. He stole the koala." And he does do he started the whole thing for a second, but he's saying it in not a way where he's like genuinely trying to justify himself. He is saying it because he is panicking, realizing how bad he fucked up, and is just saying whatever comes to mind first to cover his own ass. And the fact that he panics and realizes how bad he fucked up was the thing that I didn't expect from him. I thought he was going to like kind of be like, "Oh, I can show my wife how tough I am," and get her to rethink everything. And the fact that he immediately understands, "Oh, I don't know that I can come back from this," made me go, maybe he's actually a little bit more self-aware than I expected. I also thought that he was going to try to like throw it back in her face that she's up there with Xavier, but he doesn't exactly do that. He does say, "I just asked," like, it's clear that the fact that she's up here, I mean, this is his bedroom, it looks like. So it's a difficult thing, but also it wasn't at the top of the list. Like, he wasn't trying to redirect the conversation in a manipulative way, which I really thought he would. And when she asks where their daughter is, she's down in my parents' basement watching Moana. She's very happy. So this is when Xavier steps in with this fucking hat. And Xavier, he says, I've been wanting to kick your ass all night. Xavier says, what are you waiting for? An invitation. You are cordially invited. How do you RSVP? And the two of them are like getting into it while Zoe is attempting to talk and break them up, and they are utterly ignoring her. Eventually, it gets down to just insulting his hat. And she's like, you know what? Oh my God, stop it. You guys want to have your little slap fight? Go ahead. I'm not a prize you can win. And Xavier, no, I agree with you. I'm a feminist. Oh my God. That's exactly what he would fucking say. So this is the part where I think Brett is really trying not to laugh. He is like, it's really on the edge. And Xavier is also, it seems like, biting his tongue to keep himself like in the moment. It's a scene that feels very on the edge of falling apart. So as he is describing how he is going to punch Xavier in the throat, ruin his career by cracking his windpipe, this is when it looks like they're going to kiss. And I kind of thought that it might take a weird turn, because who knows? But I love when he says comprende or something, and Xavier says, me sabes real good. This is the part where it looks like they're about to completely fall apart. And he says, go for it. All you'll do is prove who you really are. You try to control her, you try to control me, but the truth is, you're the one who's out of control. And he says this and backs away, and Brett is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, but he's right. I was trying to control everything, and it was the reason my entire marriage had fallen apart. And I really appreciated this, that he has like a kind of moment that's, that's the thing about like self-realization, is sometimes the only people who really can get through and explain to you what the fuck you're doing are people that you don't like very much, because they're the ones who feel free to say whatever. And it can be so easy that because you don't like the person, you want to write off what they're telling you and just put it down to the fact that they're an asshole. But sometimes it hits, and it's the worst. It's just, it sucks. So at this point, he just indulges his little pettiness and grabs Xavier's hat and tosses it off the balcony. And as he walks away, Xavier yells after him, dude, that was a bullshit overpriced hat that looks stupid, man, which I have to assume is not what Xavier actually said. And I really like when they go back to the detective and she's saying, oh my God, I knew it. The hat fell first. So then we have kind of the last like big moment here for him, where he sits down next to Zoe, and you can see him really like kind of not wanting to say any of this, but he does. You were right. I shouldn't have come. The truth is, even after everything I did, I could not accept that we were through. And I have been trying to hold on. I thought if I could do that, then I could keep you from moving on. And I'm really sorry, Zoe. I just want you to be happy. And even if that means you end up with Xavier. And she goes, oh God, he sucks. I love this moment. He does this like fist pump from the soul. And it like, if he could scream at the top of his lungs without alarming everybody in the room, he absolutely would. And she starts laughing, and he's just going, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so glad to hear you say that. He's such a turd. And I appreciated this so much because, it's very difficult sometimes to see people who like don't appear to get along in any way and be like, you guys dated? Why? Like, you clearly don't like each other. But this moment between the two of them made me go, oh, there it is. I see now. Like, that was the relationship. Like, I get it, you know? And her smiling, it's just, she clearly, there's a bit of almost nostalgia here. And he says, I'm going to go home and I'm going to sign our divorce papers. And from now on, you are going to get nothing but openness and honesty from me. And she says thank you. And it's clear he was going to get up to leave. But she decides to talk to him a little bit and says, I've been going through my own stuff tonight and wondering what I want from this next. And he turns and sees that his daughter started to walk into the party, and he panics. And instead of interrupting to say like, oh my God, I really want to hear this, but I have to go, in any sense that feels like rude, he decides to pretend that he shit his pants. And when he says it, I shit my pants, she says, again? I can't believe it. I gotta go. Don't tell anyone. I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, don't look at me. Don't look at me. And he runs up out of there. I gotta say, effective. I love that as much as he wants to like win his wife back, when it comes to protecting his daughter, he's willing to just completely take all the humiliation and does not care. Like, you know, I say protecting. It's not even really. It's protecting himself because he knows she's going to be mad at him. So, but I still did appreciate that he handled this in a way, like the only way that I can think of where you interrupt a heartfelt conversation and get up and rush off that anybody would ever be willing to excuse. It's literally, to me, the only situation that works, you know? So this is when we have him walk into the recording studio and he's looking for his daughter who's like wandering around, and he comes in on Jasper, who is taking a selfie in here too. Now, I want to know why Jasper is taking selfies in all of these different fucking rooms, because that's what Anique walked in on as well, as Jasper taking a selfie in the bathroom. It just feels really sus. It feels like he's doing something else with his phone and he's making it look like he's taking a selfie because that's the most like believable reason to ever be anywhere in this house, is because you're just trying to like get some cred and say you were there. And I don't know. I'm just very suspicious of him, and I'm really starting to think that it's so obvious because it's not really him. I love when he says, have you seen a 6-year-old girl? And Jasper says, what does she look like? She's the only child at this party. And he starts to lower his hand. Tell me when to stop. And eventually he does stop. I've never seen anybody that small. He tells him, I'm so distracted. I'm about to make musical history. What does that mean? What are you doing? So he walks in at this point about, he's trying to find his daughter. Oh, right. Mr. Shapiro and Quiet Heather. And I love that Mr. Shapiro gives him this big, like, thumbs up. That never occurred to me, actually, the idea that, like, maybe if you had a crush on a teacher in high school, that if you see them at the reunion, you might hook up with them then, now that you're an adult and, like, time has passed. And I guess, actually, like, I don't have a problem with it. It's just sort of something that had never occurred to me. I think because I didn't consider teachers going to like reunions, which I would think they probably don't. But why not? Sure, you're both adults. Have at it, I suppose. This is when he stumbles across Chelsea and saying to Xavier, I really, really want to get you alone. And again, it just feels like what she wants to do is humiliate him. It does not feel like she wants to kill him. But he finds Maggie he's like, all right, come on, let's go. And puts her in the car. She immediately falls asleep. And as he goes inside to get the keys because the valet parking is gone, he hears that Xavier is dead and realizes that he can't leave. We go back into the bathroom and we have Anik and Jasper talking this over, and Anik realizing that he kind of misjudged Brett, that he misread the whole situation. And oh, right. The other detective's name is Culp. I keep forgetting that. It's such a weird name. And he confronts her about the fact that, like, our boss actually said that this is not your case. She tells him the guy they're bringing in is definitely going to fuck this entire thing up. I won't let this ruin your career, but trust me on this. This dude is not going to do a good job. So he tells her about Anik being in the bathroom for 20 minutes. He's up to something. And she tells him, anything you want out of this house, it's yours. We'll say it's evidence. Honestly, as much as I want to be like ACAB, am I right? When it's somebody like Xavier, yeah, steal all his shit. Go ahead. It's fine. So here's the note. And I want to read the whole thing. There's like up in the left corner, it looks like they were going to write hot or something, and then it got crossed out, and then it says revenge. I'm coming for you. You're going to see this is payback for what you did to me. Now's your time to feel this pain. What goes around comes around again. They say revenge is best served cold, but in your case, I know it's not. You need something burning, bold. This revenge is coming at you hot. You won't know what to believe in. It feels so good when I get even. Hot revenge. This is Jasper, right? It's Jasper. He's making musical history, wandering around, singing in the different rooms. This was his song. Like, I don't know. It just feels like this is his song, that he was doing a whole thing, and he's like letting Anik think that it's part of the murder for reasons. And I'm assuming those reasons are to like mislead him because he is the murderer. I'm still very much as aware as I am that this is likely a red herring. I'm still very much on the Jasper is the killer train. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see. I'm over time, so I have to wrap this up, but really enjoying the show. Thank you again, Max, for commissioning it. Having so much fun. And hope you guys are enjoying the coverage. Max says the next episode is probably his favorite. Yay. How many episodes are there this season, Max, by the way? I'm assuming 10, because that seems to be sort of standard for a lot of like original shows lately, but I didn't check. I don't want to look ahead at anything, because even seeing like the title of an episode sometimes can be a spoiler. So, but anyway, I'll find out, and I'm probably going to go watch the next episode like right now. So I'm excited to do that. All right, everybody. Thank you again. 8 episodes, says Max. Thank you, Max. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.